Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. If you didn't know, last weekend in February was the weekend of Global Game Jam for 2023. The Global Game Jam theme for this year was Roots, which is how we made our game Into the Roots, about spreading your environment out and taking over the forest. If you're not familiar with what a game jam is already, basically they give you a theme and some set of constraints or restrictions sometimes, and a bunch of people will split off into teams of people they know and work on a project together. My friends and I for this Global Game Jam ended up making this neat little game called Into the Roots, where you attempt to take over the forest. It was a really fun time working with them. The rest of my friends were a bunch of my friends from college. I went to school in Cincinnati, but I'm out here in Seattle, so I had a bit of time difference when working with them, but it was still really fun to make the game together. I did miss out on presenting since their session was in person, but I got to hear about all the fun projects that people worked on at the jam session, and it was very fun to see. So to talk a little bit more about the game that we ended up making, we made this game called Into the Roots, which is a multiplayer RTS-like game. We synchronized our work over GitHub and managed to have the game build and run to the browser so we could play together and test it whenever we wanted to. I will say this was a very large project and we didn't get everything we initially planned, but the basic game loop allows you to plant things across the forest, and you have these little roots that connect them up together. You can use your flowers and watermelons to help you produce more resources, and putting down trees and cactuses can extend the area that you're allowed to plant. Although be careful, whenever you put down a plant, it'll connect and draw roots to all the plants around it. And this can end up blocking you from planting other things, as they need to be able to touch one of the source plants, the tree or cactus, with a root. Other players can also build around and block you as well. The game will end up keep on going until someone hits 100 points. You get points for planting pretty much everything, but tomatoes let you get bonus points based on how many things they're connected to. Feel free to check out the demo or GitHub repo. All the links are in the description. So it's just kind of a high-level overview. The development part for the project was pretty fun. The timeline of 48 hours is very crunched for making a game. We ended up having to squeeze a lot of things in and cut some of our initial features. We started off by having a big old planning session with everyone where we all sat around and talked. Well, they sat around a table. I was on a Discord call with one of my friends. And after we got some of the basic mechanics worked out, everyone else went to sleep, but since I was 3 time zones off, I started working on some of the initial dev work, getting up some boilerplate code and resources based on some templates I have, copying in things like a multiplayer framework, visual pipeline, all that fun stuff. And over the first night, I tried to add things like putting down plants and tracking your basic resources. When everyone else met up the next day, and I woke up a couple hours after they met up because, time zones, we looked at the mechanics, and the next thing people wanted to add was the resource system, so we added that, so it actually cost things to put down plants. And then after about a day of working, most of the people were caught up, and if they could work on the project, they were, adding lots of art assets and stuff. And we started adding the root system, which is like how you could, the core mechanic and theme. Did take us a day to get there, but it was really cool when it started working, and we started adding the game loop after that and scoring victory points based on what you planted. After this, we were demoing the project with the rest of the people in the team, and everyone was liking how it was, but we were missing a little bit of polish. So that's when we really got to add in a lot of the art and UI and sound effects that everyone else in the team had been working on that wasn't just the code to the project. Did a couple of final bug fixes before the presentation, and it really went great. We're really happy with how the game turned out, and it kind of exceeded our expectations of what we thought we could initially get done. We all learned a lot throughout the process and had a lot of fun time just, hanging out and working on a game together. We're all looking forward to the next game jam and when we can hang out together and make something fun again. So whenever you do a game jam like this, sometimes it helps to do a bit of a postmortem about what went well, what didn't go well, and what you can do to improve for next time. So I'm just making this video as my own expression of that. First off, let's just start off by identifying some of the pain points. One of the problems is that we had a bit of a big team, and there was a lot of different expectations about what the project would be and what features we would be adding. Additionally, I was in Seattle, so I was like 3 hours off from the rest of the team, so just communicating with everyone, especially if they weren't expecting to talk to someone over Discord, was very difficult, especially since a bunch of the people on the team were expecting to talk in person. So I definitely felt a little disconnected from the rest of the team. So it's always good whenever you have a lot of collaboration and enthusiasm for the project, and if you just can't talk to people, it's hard to get that sense. After having a talk with one of my friends who invited me to the project about what he thought went well about the game jam, we came up with a couple of points about what we would do if we were to do this next time. They revolve around preparation, iteration, limitation, and collaboration. I know, a lot of Asians. So let's dive into that first one, preparation. So One of the problems that we definitely had was that we hadn't really set up our development environments and downloaded all the tools we needed beforehand. We might have needed to download a different library, a package, a version of Unity, and that's okay if we wanted to add something new, but a lot of these things we knew we were going to work with Unity. We knew we wanted to make a 2D game. We knew we wanted it to be multiplayer before the game jam even started, because that's just the stuff that we wanted to work on. And making sure that we had downloaded those tools beforehand and gone through maybe a basic tutorial or two would have really helped us save a lot of time and make our game jam much more effective. So some of the tools that I would recommend if you're ever going to do a game jam is making sure that you have the game engine installed, any of the design tools, and version control tools like Git. And for everyone on your team to have those installed and be on the same page before you start, as that'll help relieve a lot of stress from the game jam workflow. After that, the next station is iteration. So for our development, what we kind of did is we did a bit of what would be called like a waterfall method, where we did a design and then added feature by feature by feature to get to the end. This can work, but sometimes you don't exactly end up with a product that matches what your original expectations. Probably would have been better to follow a more of a rapid design or agile process, where we'd have like a short design session followed by a dev session, and then have like a 10 or 15 minute collaboration every hour where you go back and go, does this dev meet our expectations? If not, what happened? Because one of the big things that we had as a pain point during our development is I would just work on something for, we'd just code or add art, and we just separately split off and do our own stuff for a bunch of hours, then come back later and we say, oh yeah, I was working on this, but it kind of drifted away from the original expectation, or this part wasn't defined, so I just ran with it. And that made putting things back in together and integrating it all together just not kind of work as we thought it would. So having this kind of iterative design process where we go back and review as a group for a brief time, like maybe 10 or 15 minutes every couple of hours, would have really helped for avoiding these problems and focusing more on the core theme, mechanic, and game. So speaking of those kind of core themes and mechanics, the next thing we want to think of for next game jam would be limiting our scope, limitation. I mean, when we tried to make an RTS for this during the design session, we were a bit overambitious and planned much more than we could actually achieve in the small 48-hour time window we have. So make sure not to plan your scope of the project too large. Start small and really focus on what your core theme and mechanic and game loop are in that order. And make sure everybody's on the same page for the core theme. Then once you have a theme ready, think of what your core mechanics are and work on those. And then once you have your core theme and mechanics, then you can add in the game loop. And if you're iterating quickly on the project, you'll be able to go back and readjust what your mechanics are based on how the game loop plays, or maybe after playing the game and figuring out that something's more fun than you initially thought, you might want to lean more heavily into that. Like, for example, with our project, we found that building the routes around and isolating other players was a really fun mechanic, but there's nothing in our game that it was kind of detrimental to do that for the victory point game loop, because you'd have to spend time and resources kind of cutting someone off when you could just be getting points instead. So having a discussion with the group about how to have those mechanics line up better with what was the most fun could have been a way to really improve our project and add a lot more polish to it than what we currently had. And then for the last one, collaboration. Just make sure everyone's talking and working together, take breaks and have fun. Maybe like have a short little hour break session where everyone chats and hangs out. Make sure to rest and get some sleep. We definitely did that this time. Don't want to burn out. I know in previous game jam sessions, I would end up working for like 12 or 14 hours straight, which just made me completely dead the next day. So make sure to take some rest, hang out with each other. Remember, this game jam is about having fun, and be honest and transparent if like something's not fun or if you're not enjoying what you're working on, because hopefully if you're working with your friends, everybody wants to have a good time, and if you're not having a good time, they'll want to help you. So yeah, focusing on those 4 things for the next game jam of preparation, iteration, limitation, and collaboration, we hope will really help our next project to be even better than our previous ones. My friends and I look forward to jumping into the next game jam that we have the opportunity to. This postmortem and breakdown will definitely help us make the most out of our next game jam. Hopefully it'll be even more fun with all the tools and techniques that we learned from this game jam. Thanks for listening, and hope you have a great day. Bye!